Good afternoon, everybody. How are we all doing? So, welcome to the start of what is going to be quite an interesting experiment. So, let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to be doing. So, the idea behind this is simply that we are going to we're going to create a web serial. What do we mean by that? So basically it's going to be a story where an episode gets published every week. Hello Barbicus, how are you? Thank you. So we're going to be publishing a story that's going to go live on my website each week, and I am going to show you how it all gets done. So we are going to live stream the writing of it. So you're going to see, the reason it's called the first draft is because it is going to be a first draft. It's going to be terrible. It's going to have all the mistakes. So to give you a little bit of background about myself, my name is Adrian Faulkner. I am a writer. I have written novels. I've written scripts. I have written video games. Currently, behind the scenes, I am working on a novel, and I am also working on a video game at the moment. I am an agented writer. I have an agent to represent me for novels. And the reason I wanted to do this is I think that we don't get to see a lot of behind the scenes. One of the things I always wanted to be able to do was to actually, with some of the great books I've read, is I was like, I wonder what they look like when they first start out, and why do they make the decisions that they do. So today the plan is that we are going to start planning out this series. And you might say, well, if you're doing an episode each week, how much planning can you do? Well, there's a little bit that we can. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to show you decisions that we make. Feel free to ask questions, to jump in. If you've got a few suggestions. I won't promise that I'm going to take them on board, but I will definitely listen to them. So this is very much audience participation. We're going to be very much led by you. So let's get into... There we go. So here we go. The dreaded white page. So let's put something on that white page so that we know that we aren't... I'm going to increase the font size on here. Let's do it so that it's a bit easier to read. If you have trouble reading it, by all means, let me know. So, it's called the first draft because that's what it's about. It's about seeing the first draft of a story and how it gets put together. So I think that one of the things I've got an area I want to start off with is considerations. Right, let's make that into a nice title. Heading one will do. Right. So we are just literally making notes here. So considerations, things we need to take into account is the name. Okay, you see my terrible typing. And what do I mean? Why do we need to consider the name? Well, we've called it the first draft. It would be kind of cool if the making of, it's the first draft because it is the actual written first draft. But if the story was about something that is the first draft. So we've got that to take into consideration. We also need to think about the format of what we're doing. You will be told as a writer, you will hear this time and time again, write what you know. The honest answer to that is yes, you need to write what you know, but if you are going for traditional publishing, it's going to be a much harder sell to sell certain things. I will tell you now, LGBTQ male protagonist is a difficult sell. It is difficult to sell anything that is a bit cross-genre. So, you know, if you want something that's like fantasy with a bit of sci-fi, it's got to sit neatly within those kind of on the shelves. What area in the shelf? And you might say, well, actually, I want to do vampire space opera. And you could possibly do it, but it's got to be an exceptional book. Because the biggest thing you've got to think of is, where is a librarian going to file it? What subcategory? So, we do need to have considerations. Now, with what we're doing here, we've got a bit more freer reign. So we can do some things there. I'm trying to think of other things that we've got to take into consideration. I'm going to say cadence. So I am potentially, I mean, I think when we first start this off, we may go through a couple of weeks where I do this daily. But to start off with, I mean, we're going to have our planning sessions. But then after that, it's going to be a new episode every week. Now, I'm going to say another thing we need to take into consideration is that it's ongoing. That means is that, I mean, we could potentially end up with having seasons, but this is basically going to be pants versus plotted. I usually plot everything. Now, I need to make sure I don't screw myself over. So, those are some to start with. Those are my initial thoughts of things I need to take in. So, because of the name, what I want to do, I want it to be draft. I thought it could be conscripts. So we could have, you know, because it's the first draft, it could be about a group of conscripts. So the question I need to ask myself, why are they first? Yeah. So they haven't gone and just said, right, we're going to draft you a bunch of people. Why is there seems to be this ongoing kind of recruitment that's going on? So obviously, since I first came up with this idea, I have had a few ideas. And, you know, that's what happens when you're first putting together a plan, is that you have some rough ideas. The rough idea I have is I'm thinking it's going to be a fantasy story. I will come back to that because we may change some of this. So mainly fantasy stories because that's what I write. So fantasy story about a bunch of conscripts. I thought, wouldn't it be, what if, you know, obviously the first thing is if you're conscripting people, what's happened to the regular soldiers? And, you know, my obvious fantasy answer is that they've been destroyed, eaten, thrown into lava, whatever. So, fantasy story about a bunch of conscripts. After, I'm gonna potentially we can change this as we go. So, something comes through a portal and destroys the land's defenses. So I kind of like this idea that, you know, there's a tear in the universe, something comes through the kingdom or whatever kind of region it is. We'll get more into that when we try and world build a bit. The soldiers have all gone to fight it and they've all been destroyed. And now the only hope is that they're going to have to literally arm like the peasants, so to speak, and say, look, we need you to go and fight because otherwise we're going to get destroyed. So I like that as a basic idea, and pretty much that's all I've got. So I think that would kind of be a good story. It's a group about, you know, a bunch of conscripts. The first draft of people who have going up against this big bad. So the format. Oh no, I'm doing that all wrong. There we go. So things to consider is because we are effectively self-publishing this. We are not looking. I will tell you now, we are not looking to put it into a novel. So it's an ongoing serial. So it's not going to have so much of a start, middle, and end. What it's going to need is to be something where we can just keep it going on. I'm thinking of like webcomics, and how we can potentially like kind of lean on that idea. So I think as a format, I'm thinking that if I've got to write this each week, and it's going to be basically pants rather than plotted. I'm going to be baking it up as I go along. I really do have a danger of writing myself into a corner. So I think this is again like my considerations and trying to like unscrew myself before I start. Multiple protagonists. I can't spell. There we go. So we're gonna have multiple protagonists. The idea being that literally, if I write myself into a corner, they can get eaten by the big bad, and I can just basically swap to somebody else, or I can leave them for a few weeks and change the scene. Literally, because we're writing this as a web serial, we are probably looking at 500 to 2,000 words per week, or scene. So we'll have one scene every week. I'll put episode. Oh no, I say per week. The idea is that this will be weekly. We will initially, as I say, go a bit faster. So there are going to be lots of kind of small cut scenes. There'll be just like one scene, so they will be quite self-contained. And I can just swap between the characters. I can just kind of do what J.R.R. Martin does. So the cadence, as I said, is we are looking at initial. I'm going to say a weekday run because I'm not going to do it all weekends. So for maybe 2 weeks, just to get the story going, and then we are going to go to a weekly. So I need to take that into consideration, and also obviously we're having daily planning sessions. So we are going to have. I suppose this is plot more than anything else. We can't really plot it all out. Then we're going to do world building, and then we will also do characters, I think. So that probably means we're going to start writing on Tuesday. I have to tell you that for me, this lot of this, like the format. So, for example, like the name, that might change, but I mean, because I've already publicized the name, normally you'd write the story and then choose the name. Decisions about the name are normally done after you've written the story. Format, these are things that you need to kind of possibly decide before you write. So, what are you going to try and go for? Traditional publishing? Are you going to try and go for self-publishing? You know, if you're going to go traditional publishing, having a 500,000 word novel isn't gonna be able to kind of cut it. Something else in format I want to add in is I'm going to add multi-genre in there. And the reason I'm doing this is because in traditional publishing, you cannot do that. So I want to have fun with this. So I want to write something that I don't feel is an idea I wasted and I could have used for a book. So I'm going to go kind of cross-genre. Cross-genre is probably a better word. So there'll probably be some sci-fi elements. That would be kind of cool. We've got the cadence thing. So it's ongoing. So this is the problem is that we need to have what I'm thinking here is like, well, how would I go about doing this where I don't know how it's going to end? So what I'm thinking of, set up like a TV series. So what happens with your TV series is that you have a great pilot, and then you will have a mini arc episode with arc. Now, I don't think that you can do a mini arc each week. I think we should say mini arcs are multiple weeks. So really what we've got to do is basically put everything into that pilot. So this is normally where I kind of would get to, and then what I would do is I would normally spend years. A lot of the ideas that I've got, I would kind of go away and think and leave them in like the back of my brain to mull over. Something that we also need to consider. And I forgot what I was going to say now. Is ongoing. I forgot what I was going to do now. I'm not sure. So let's start. I'm going to come back to that. There's something else I was going to say, and then I literally looked at the stream and I forgot what I was going on about. So let's look at plot. Okay. What has happened? So we are something bad has appeared. Okay. Heroes need to I think just defeat. It's got to be a bigger problem. We need something that's kind of sets it up. It doesn't just say go and kill the big bad and everything will be over. So I think that it has got to be it's not that heroes need to defeat. Basically what they need to do is they need to combat the situation, try to improve the situation of some sort. Because otherwise, what I'm going to say is, you know, the Wicked Witch of the West is causing all the problems. We're going to go and kill the Wicked Witch of the West. Now, you could write something where you put obstacles in the way of them, and it's them trying to get to the Wicked Witch of the West. And that would be good for a little while. But I don't think that's a really strong plot point. Because it just literally becomes like, oh, you know, you think of the TV series. It's like, oh, you know, what obstacle is going to get in the way and stop them this week? And so we want something where the characters are going to grow. So, I think that I'm going to go for initially, there has been a tear in the universe. Okay? So I want you to think that there's like this, just like in space, something's come through. So why not? Okay, I wanted to go back. I'm going back to this cross-genre idea here. Why don't we have that the world is fantasy, the enemy is sci-fi? That would be kind of interesting. So it's swords versus aliens. Bob, hi. So what kind of conscripts are these? Medieval peasants, levies, modern boot camp? Good question. I think they've got to have some... They've got to be in a... I think... There's no right answers here. It's a really good question. Thank you so much for asking. So, okay. So conscript. Who's conscripting them as well? This is another thing. So, I'm thinking. So the soldiers of the realm. Let's say it's a realm because we're going to go maybe the world is fantasy. Have gone to fight Big Bad. And I'm starting, in my back of my head, I'm starting to think things like the Queen Alien. Imagine something like that. Starship Troopers kind of vibe, maybe. Maybe with a bit more intelligence. Maybe something more kind of like Diablo, or something from like Diablo or something like that. Kind of pulling in from all my... So, they've gone to fight the Big Bad, but wiped out. The Big Bad, and when I say Big Bad, it may not be a singular thing. It might be a swarm. Big Bad is heading towards habitats, villages. Well, don't stop making this more complicated, right? Let's create some. This is another thing. We want to create conflict wherever we can. What if the aristocracy? I can't spell aristocracy, and apparently I can. First time for anything, really. There, aristocracy force villagers to fight. That could be an interesting thing where you've got a class. So then we've got like this kind of class system. So going back to Bob's question here, Bob's is a really good thing. It's just like medieval peasants or a modern boot camp, and it's somewhere. I think somewhere between the. Imagine like the you've got. I'm thinking Attack on Titan now. See all these influences. You know, if you've watched Attack on Titan, they've got like all these like walls, where like they have these habitats and they get smaller and smaller, and the kind of the richest are in the center. Don't spoil Attack on Titan because I've only ever got halfway through the first season, then got distracted. Although I really, really want to watch it, I just got delayed to something else. So, what if the people, the aristocrats, basically, they say, look, we've sent our soldiers out to fight this Big Bad, but we got wiped out. We're gonna hunker down in our nice, rich areas. But if you want to save your own villages, you're on your own. Now, there's some nice conflict there. So, I'm never going to spell this properly a second time. No, I see I didn't. Aristocrats? I don't think that's... Oh, no, I didn't spell aristocracy. Left click. Autocrats? Maybe autocrats is better. Listen... Oh god, and I put that in the middle there. See, there we go. This is why you don't. So the conflict: the aristocrats need the food from the farms. Yeah. But on top of that. Oh, but the farmers, Amsavas, villagers, whatever, need to protect themselves. I think that's there's some areas to be mined here. This I feel is quite content rich, because we could have like a kind of bureaucrat who is basically instructing the villagers that they're on their own. The villagers could push back and go, oh no, we've got no food. And maybe there's a few remaining soldiers and they're literally telling the villagers, no, you still need to provide us with food. Could potentially work. So these are gonna be, they're gonna have no fighting skills other than fighting off wolves farm. I put that down because there might be somebody who goes, what if I'm going, this is kind of coming from the Attack on Titan thing angle. But what if it's like France during the 100 Years' War with... Do you know, I don't know about that. I need to read up on that. So what happened during the raids? Tell me more, Bob. I'm interested. Why are you... So, okay, I am going to make a note of that. Bob's suggestion. I cannot type for the life of me. I will take that on board. So right, while we're doing thinking of that, I'm gonna put about, let's go with the big bad. Now in my head, the big bad, I'm thinking something alien or demonic. That is a bullet point. Oh, here we go. During the 100 Years' War, England could easily defeat France's army in the field, but couldn't take France's 40 camps easily. Okay, yeah. So to try and win the war, they would go on Chevrolet raids where they would just massacre the villages to try and starve out the aristocratic soldiers. Ooh. That's interesting. Yeah, so we're going to get into world building on a later stream, but I'm just going to make a note there. And I'm going to say, right, instead of Attack on Titan, where one central hub with walls. Where central hub with lots of towns with surrounding infrastructure. Okay. Eventually this ended with France developing better siege tech and winning the war. Okay, I like that. That is really good. So the thing what I've taken from that, Bob, is what I think is that, as I say, at the moment I'm thinking of, as I say, you pull from everywhere. And I was thinking like this one central mega city and then like all these concentric rings around of defenses. But instead, we've got lots of areas with their infrastructure, like the farming and agriculture around it. So would that mean multiple portals? Interesting. If there's multiple portals, if they just opened all the... So these would then stream out. I'm just going to make a note that they need to be intelligent. So, what if... So, one of the things, another things that I have been thinking about is I want to do a whole session on world building because that gets really complicated sometimes. Because you then start looking, well, is there magic in the world, magic systems? I definitely think we should have magic. And the reason I'm saying I think there should be magic is because the enemy is so sci-fi. So you've got magic versus sci-fi. That would be kind of nuts. Question I'm asking myself, what is what is it that those you know, the big bad want? Now, what I think could be kind of cool there is thing. So the idea is the aristocracies hold up in castles and only exist to save their own skin and prevent the alien incursion from getting deeper into the countryside. But the towns and villages are largely not protected from raiders who can skirt around these castles and cities. Completely agree. Yep. I like that. Yep. This is kind of where I go. This is this comment here. Instead of Attack on Titan, where one central hub is ring walls, lots of towns with surrounding infrastructure. The surrounding infrastructure is vulnerable, and the villagers are basically screwed. They've got to protect themselves, or they get wiped out. Now, the aristocrats are pretty. They're screwing themselves over because if they don't try and protect the infrastructure, they're going to die as well. But they're not that bright. So I'm going to put something back, going back up to what do they want. I'm going to put a little, it's a little bit cryptic and I'll explain what I mean. So something that is the source of magic. So, you know, your dragon egg or something that is traditionally, you know, magic staff, the magic sword. You know, that's a little bit tropey, but it's basically the magic is basically, you know, where they say fair enough. No, I mean it ended up working for the French in the 100 Years' War. That's fair enough. So I think I like that idea. I think I've kind of taken that on board. So the aliens want to get into the cities is because something is inside those cities is a source of magic, but it's kind of that phrase where they say any kind of magic is you know, any kind of advanced science is such that it's indistinguishable from magic. So that might be kind of an idea, but I'm going to put a little warning sign to myself here. Don't, even writing in caps, don't be tropey. Yeah. Yeah, sufficiently advanced technology. Yep, that's what I'm thinking. Another idea I'm having on the big bad is kind of like The Walking Dead. Oh, I've done that all in. But I'm thinking of a sci-fi angle, where aliens can use science to take over, utilize their captives. And I'm thinking in several different directions. So one is like, you know, on one end of the scale, you've got the zombie that bites the person. They become a zombie as well. And you could take that to a sci-fi thing where it's like mind control. Or you could take it even further for something like Matrix, where like basically these people are batteries. Hi, Casual. Hi, Raz. Maybe the magic is a product of the sci-fi power source and leaking into this realm. Maybe the magic is a byproduct of the sci-fi power source. Oh, I like that idea. So magic is basically being created by science. I'm saying science. I'm thinking things like radiation leaking into fantasy world from portal. That's a kind of cool idea. I like that. Yeah. That works really well. I like that. That's kind of cool. So one of the things I'm thinking like Attack on Titan, Walking Dead. One of the things I really like, if you've got a big cast of characters, right, it's kind of fun to kill them off when they least expect it. So I like it that there's got to be risk involved. And I think that one of the reasons I think the zombie genre works so well, I keep hitting the table, sorry I shouldn't do it, it keeps making banging noises. One of the reasons that the zombies genre don't work as well is because, like, you get bitten by a zombie, it's not just that you die, it's that you turn into the thing that you're trying to fight. And there's kind of a horror in that, obviously, but it's a horror that's beyond, like, literally, you know, people are biting and chewing and, you know, kind of eating each other. You know, it's no longer that you have to kill the undead, it's that you have to kill the person who was once your friend. And I kind of like that idea. That can, you know, as a writer, what we're wanting to do is to do things that make you go, oh my god, he didn't do that, did he? I mean, you can overdo it. The Walking Dead definitely has overdone it in the years. But there needs to be greater stakes than death. I've done all these. All my bullet points are all over the place now, but never mind. So, as you can see, what we're actually doing here, in order to try and come up with a plot, we're also going into other areas that we are going to be covering. So, as you can see, I'm not coming up with individual characters yet. That's going to be something separate. But we are touching on characters because we're saying, well, right, okay, what's the setup of the big bad? So if the magic is... So, if we are going to use that the magic is leaking into the world from the portals, then what is it that they want? Because it can't be magic, because that doesn't exist until the portal's open. You can do the, like, we want your resources, but oh my god, we've done that so many times. You know, we could play on the idea of the first draft. What if... I'm not going to delete these. I'm going to straight through, if I can remember where it is. Hell. Oh, I'll just cover those there things. So we're not going to do those anymore, but I'll leave them. So, what if the aliens want conscripts as well for their own intergalactic war? As you can tell, at the moment, it's really, really tropey, but we're kind of what I tend to do is kind of a lot of the stories that you put together, Borg style, yeah, something along those sort of lines. I don't want to be, you know, I'm going to put a note here, don't be Borg. And the reason is because people are just going, oh, you're right, Borg fans fiction. And I don't want it to be that, but it's something along those lines. So let's just do the colour there. These are meant to be crossed through, but I cannot for the life of me in this version of Online Word work out how you do that. right through. Buy myself some time here. It's obviously not called strike through. Oh well, never mind. Anything that's highlighted is basically deleted. It's just so that we know it's there. So yeah, so basically the first draft is like a multiple play. So basically what's happening is that there is this first draft of villagers to fight this alien horde. We need a better name than horde or Borg or something like that. But literally the aliens have opened this because this is their way to fight a bigger war, and they are gonna basically take captives, turn them into mindless soldiers, and basically use them as their first draft against their war. So Bob says, so maybe the sci-fi people are interested in the magic of the fantasy people. Like they have all this sci-fi glowy power bits, and every time one of the peasants comes by and waves their hands, all the machinery starts malfunctioning. So they're capturing, studying, enslaving, and impressing the wizards and the... So, 1 second, I just need to write a text. Right, so... Yeah, why... That's the thing. Why this world? So, welcome to how to do bullet points. So, what Bob is saying, I like what you're saying, Bob. Is because, but this is where I normally go for a long walk, because of what sometimes you can have happen is that you have two colliding ideas. And this is an example of it. Raz writes, that's a pretty good shout. I'm pretty sure we'd be interested if people came by who could breathe in coal dust and suddenly have magic powers. Yeah. By mindless saves, you can usually get people to fight you willingly. Okay. So, lots to consider there, and I like all this. So what we can here's the two colliding ideas, and there is somewhere in between them. Is that the portals have opened, something is leaking through to create magic. Yeah? And it's an unexpected consequences. Now, we may change that. Unexpected consequence. Now, if that's the case, so, why would the aliens, the sci-fi people, basically open the portal in the first place? They wouldn't know that. Unless there is a preceding incident. Now, I love ideas like this because usually this is where things get really interesting, because you can sometimes go, well, you know, alien crash landed, found out that the people around them got magic powers from their from their reactors of their they were leaking fuel from their spaceship, and it caused the others to have magic abilities, and therefore that's why the aliens launched their attack. The only thing is with that is that when you do that, it would be a really cool twist if, as the story went along, you've actually found that the aliens are kind of in this very similar situation to the villagers. But then what you don't want to do is kind of get it into a stage where the story is kind of hypocritical. That you've got like, well, the aliens are doing this. They should realize that like doing what's happening to them to others is a bad thing, even if they don't initially realize it. But maybe it's always been leaking into the world via tiny cracks in the world. The sci-fi people will notice the numbers don't add up for their pollution in their world from the machines. They notice the cracks and force one open. That could be something. Again, if I'm being contrary, it's not because like I think these are bad ideas. It's just that sometimes what you want to really do is, if you take an idea, is really push it and break it, and then like try and tear it apart. Because sometimes when you tear it apart, you get something a lot better. So, like for example, I kind of said we started off with the magic is created by the science leaking into the world, and the real better one example. We kind of said, the aliens basically take over and they're captives as mindless slaves. And Bob suggested, well, no, actually, that's maybe not a great idea. Maybe we could do that better, and that they're more willing to do it. If they are, then the question is, well, why have they done that? And that could be explored in the story. Where I'm worrying at the moment is, I think that the big bad should have layers. I think it's very easy to make a two-dimensional villain, and to have them motivated by something that's going on is great. I think that's really good, but I kind of always want them to be just on the other side. So maybe it's a cultural thing that they do, that they feel that where am I thinking? I'm going quiet. I'm trying to explain. Normally I would sit quietly and think these things through, put some music on, go for a walk. So where I'm thinking is what I don't want to do is to get to episode 20 and have it the aliens were just doing what they needed to do and we should all be friends. I want to kind of make sure that they are constantly a threat, even if they are a nuanced threat. I'm going to put some notes in here. So, culture causes them to I'm not. They're just little notes to myself. So the Janissaries and Mamluks and military slaves were generally better off as military slaves than they were as peasants and mercenaries. That's why they were so famously loyal. Okay, so we could spin this on this head, Bob. This is the thing. So what we could say is that the first draft is basically... I'm not sure I want to go for this as an idea. Is basically a bunch of maybe soldiers or villagers or defenders or whatever. The conscripts aren't to defend their own world. They've basically been recruited to join this other bigger war. One of the most interesting things about this whole process is that a lot of this would go on in my head and I'm trying to talk it through. What I don't want to do, I want the option that, if you like, season 1 of the story is them fighting the aliens. Thinking back to the TV model, end of season 1 is actually they're fighting in a bigger war. Season 2 basically sees them kind of join up with the aliens. What I don't want to see happen, I like the idea of the mix and the fantasy and the the sci-fi. I really do like that. Kind of having a mishmash of just having fun with it, where I don't have to worry about, you know, where's this going to sit on the shelves, what I'd have to say to my agent on how to sell it. What I would much prefer is that it's always grounded in fantasy with science fiction elements. So I'm gonna put again. The trick is if you have if I have an idea, I'm gonna put it down. It may not fit into the jigsaw puzzle, and you may find that literally I've written ideas where the original idea, the end idea is kind of scraps 90% of this. But I want to put this down. So portals lead to different worlds. And the reason I am doing that, the reason that I want to lead it to different worlds is simply, goes back to my consideration. I want to give myself as much variance as I possibly can. So, you know, basically, I'm gonna put what my... This is a terrible example, but I've been playing a bit of Minecraft lately, and like I really enjoy going through the different biomes. So you can think of that as different worlds, different things like that. But it would be kind of cool if I have these portals going to different worlds, so that if I kind of get a bit bored with the world building, I can kind of jump to a different world. So maybe there is a third faction in all of this. Going back to the idea is like Raz's idea, that it's kind of always... Look, I haven't even got my light on. Not that that makes much difference. That maybe the first draft, there's a third faction that comes along and says, look, they're coming here. They're going to open these portals. I need you to kind of join me and help me in fighting them. The aristocrats kind of step away and say, no, we don't want to do it. You're just a crazy old fool. And then they do come. And basically our first draft is basically who this third faction gets picked up. So in Myst, the people wrote books that created worlds and then harvested resources from them by portaling in. Okay. Lot going through my head at the moment. Must remember to speak. So. Let's go back to here. No. So, the aristocrats gain access to some power. This power opens portals. Yeah. Third faction. Warns they are tampering with the... I don't know what we're going to call it, but I'm just going to put the flux capacitor for a MacGuffin. Yeah. And then, so the aristocrats ignore and open the portal to the big bad. Yeah. So that could be an interesting idea. I'm constantly trying to find conflict, so fighting the aliens, but not from the fantasy world. So they born aristocrats. Ignored. Open. In. Got the beginnings of something here, I think. It's still very woolly, but this is the way. So basically, the third faction, basically is the one that recruits the villagers, and they, as the first draft. This could be kind of a cool scene because you could literally just go kind of a little bit crazy with the death and destruction there. So what is he's recruited them, but how, why would he, literally, if you're fighting an army and you might want people to help you, but you wouldn't say, look, I'm drafting you because you guys are going to stop it. Because it's like 5 people versus an entire, like, empire. So I think they have to have some hidden power of some sort. And I'm gonna put, it's too obvious to make it magic. It's got to be something that's not magic. So I'm thinking Star Wars at the moment. So I'm thinking like, the third faction is your Luke Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi figure. And I was literally just thinking, well, I don't really want to go kind of like down the thing of the Force. But I kind of like the idea of how Star Wars kind of mixes that kind of fantasy and sci-fi element. The other thing I tend to do, and we'll probably go into it more when we do the world building session, is what I'll do is I'll build it and then I will change what the world is. So literally I will say, right, okay, let's build a medieval world. And then once I've built all the kind of structures, I'll then go, right, I'm going to change it from being a medieval world into something completely different. And I am thinking kind of weird Western fantasy. Not kind of like Dark Tower or anything like that, but kind of like just changing the aesthetics a little bit. I'm still working on the connection between the feudal society and the sci-fi society. Like, maybe they were one society once, but they became separated from each other. Okay, so like there was a colony once, and like basically they went off. I would be tempted to link it into that third faction, because then they've got investment in it. What I am trying to do secretly here is, if you like, what I'm doing is I'm like trying to say, well, let's make like the magic and thing a bit fantasy. let's make the world building a little bit Western, say. Let's make this a bit Star Warsy. Let's make this a little bit Aliens. The reason being is it gives me lots of options to go in week to week. What I'm trying not to do, I'm trying to kind of close down. I'm trying to create the pilot episode, if you like, and have a really cool initial pilot, kind of first episode, but then have enough options that I can kind of, because I'm going to be not doing this on my own, I'm going to be writing this with people watching, that I've kind of got a lot of options on ways to take it. So let's put Bob's suggestion in there. What if the aristocrats, they gain some excess of power? Archaeology. I'm going Indiana Jones here now. But literally, so they maybe like Bob's idea is that basically they were from the society once and they were maybe like a colony. Their ship was there, it was damaged. It's kind of disappeared over the years. It's been buried. It's been there for thousands, millions of years, and basically the aristocrats kind of find that power, this tesseract or whatever it is, and they go, wow, look at all this power and what it does for us. Why would they open portals? What if the aristocrats are opening the portals and basically sending their soldiers in and just go and literally steal all their gold and take all their wealth and bring it back to us? So maybe the scene opens with them, some archaeologist, and I'm not talking Indiana Jones, the fantasy, again, like an old mine. Let's go to the weird Western, and they find this kind of glowing blue orb. And when he touches it, it opens a portal. Maybe science fiction-y, in the science fiction world, it's like a wormhole device. That's how they used to do faster than light travel. But because they're completely misusing it, they're not got the proper protections in it. This thing has a half-life of 1 billion years. It's like finding a nuclear core reactor. Nuclear rod or something like that, but this is like a wormhole thing, and basically it gives them the magic power to open the portals. Bob, okay. Oh, the sci-fi world creates resource worlds in other dimensions and then harvests from them. One of the resource worlds was hijacked by secessionist faction, colonized, and then hidden from the sci-fi world for so long that both factions forgot about each other. Potentially, yeah. When you say sci-fi world, I don't know if you're talking about the aliens, the bad aliens, or the good third faction. But I think the good third faction. I think that something like that is really good, and that's kind of what I would kind of use further down the line. So what you tend to do whenever you're writing is your leaf threads open. Yeah. Well, literally, I think the way I would say it is that this third faction years and years ago, the aliens. I don't know. I kind of want the aliens to be this overwhelming force. This sense of dread. So like in my head, I'm thinking like what they look like is something like Starship Troopers or Aliens, and you know, like the big bad guy in Diablo, he's got the like massive kind of, I forget what the name is. Somebody will know what I'm talking about, but like Diablo, that kind of that's kind of like they have like the hive and then maybe the more intelligent people, and I kind of want them to be. I don't want them to have quite so much redemption, at least not in the first series, you know, or initially. I like the idea of using it though for like the third faction. That basically the third faction, you know, they were Starfleet. They were going around, you know, this is a kind of an example, but they were Starfleet. They were going around. Oh, the aliens are gone fully transhumanist. Yeah, potential. Whatever, I mean, I think that whatever it is, there has to be history between these two, the big bad and the third faction. And basically, our world is kind of caught in the middle of it, because they've literally, you know, using my Star Trek analogy, they've dropped the warp drive. Like, you know, or what's happened is that they originally colonized, you know, had a colony on this planet. Their starship kind of crashed, or they didn't use it, or thing, but it was kind of left there, and it basically over 1,000 million years, it's kind of, I don't know, got buried in the ground. Somebody's dug it up and found the warp drive, but the warp drive is used to kind of create like wormholes. So, because it's not used within the kind of the function that it was originally intended, it kind of starts splitting the universe. Now that basically is detected by this third faction, and you know, the third faction now, they're no longer Starfleet. They're just like, you know, those glory days have gone. But he's a traveler, and he knows what's going on, and he basically travels there to warn them, look, don't do it. And basically, that's when the aristocrats open the wrong portal, and basically, maybe that portal, it's another realm rather than kind of a wormhole, another dimension. I think those are things that can be explored in the story. I don't want to lock myself down too much. So, I think that we've got the basis of a plot here. So basically, so what we've got, what's happened is like this fantasy meets Western kind of world. Basically, in the mines, somebody digs up this this weird gem object. They take it back to the aristocrats, and the aristocrats find that it can open portals. They get really, really greedy and say, well, look, there's all these, because this world is quite sparse, we can use this to our advantage. So they send their soldiers in to basically attack those worlds within the portals, and bring back, you know, all the riches. Third faction turns up and says, look guys, this is not a good idea, you're causing problems. Now these guys can't, they're too basic to kind of, basic's the wrong word, but they are in a fantasy world, so they can't tell science from magic. So they think they've just got themselves on a magic device, and somebody warning them not to use the magic. Crazy old man. Basically, he ends up in the village. And that's when the aristocrats open a portal and open it to this, like, you know, demonic hell, and have everything kind of running through. So the third faction then recruits the villagers, and what is he recruiting them to do? So I think what it is, I'm going to put this different realm. I don't think it's as simple to get to the aliens as jumping on a starship. So maybe the reason, so okay, so reason the third faction died was because their drive open portal to alien realm. Yeah, kind of. With a bit of doom thrown in, maybe. Because their warp drive opened a portal to the alien realm, and basically it wiped out third faction to closed portal. Which is why, like, that the colony was left alone and nothing's happened for thousands and thousands of years. Because literally it nearly wiped out the universe. Okay. Okay, so here's my cosmology. Okay, way back when, humans' technology is so advanced they can create worlds they can harvest resources from in other dimensions. Okay. A collection of religious pilgrims create one such world in secret, colonize and hide it. They create a secret society, third faction, that guards the truth of the world's creation, while the rest of the society is forbidden from this knowledge to prevent anyone from contacting them, giving away their location. I like elements of that. I mean, it's good. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. Back when human technology is so advanced they can create entire worlds. Okay, yeah. So literally, you have the equivalent of being able to spawn your own Minecraft world to get your resources. So they kill it. Okay, so they then... Pilgrims say we'll create one for ourselves and we're going to hide in it. So they kind of like, you know, like the Mayflower, but basically to another dimension. They don't want anybody to find out, so basically they create a secret society. Okay, I see where you're going. Yeah. You know, we were religious. There's some what I like about your idea, Bob, and I may not go with it, but that's not like to say it's a bad idea, because, you know, what I do like about your idea is like the idea of the religious pilgrims, about them being persecuted. There's some really interesting themes that you can do with that. You know, that they basically, you know, they had to hide from the world. They had to run away, and now they have to kind of step into the light a little bit because of what's happened. There's some really interesting themes in that. Yeah, Bob, honestly, that's what this is for, is to get ideas out. I can't promise I'm ever going to get them in, you know, adopt them, but there's nothing stopping you kind of writing your own story for it. Or, you know, kind of... sometimes, do you know, one of the things I tend to sometimes do is when I am writing a story and I have a couple of really good ideas, is I will go with what idea I decide is the best. But obviously, like, I think about like that society's religion. So what then happens is that I don't want that religion to say, well, basically we came from the stars and, you know, we you know, packed away our big spaceship. We traveled here on a starship and then hid it. I'd rather have something that is a little bit different, that kind of takes elements of the truth and kind of twists it a little bit. So sometimes what I do is I'll take like an idea like yours that says, you know, this world was created, you know, I might have my world and I say, well, you know, our religion says that we were chased, you know, we were persecuted, and this was our salvation, this kind of very sparse world, and so we should be grateful for what we've given, because there's badder things out there, and that the aristocrats have got so arrogant that they don't heed these warnings. There's things you can mine with that. So even if the idea is something different, you can sometimes reutilize those ideas. So I think that the only thing I kind of, for me, the way I don't want to go is I kind of want the idea is that the big bad does not have redemption in it. There's danger in doing that, though, because you have to worry about whether you are... We had a thing with orcs where all orcs were bad, and it can sometimes be used to kind of justify xenophobia, and obviously I don't want to do that, which is why I think I'm moving away from the transhumanist kind of angle, because I think that and that's not saying that that's a wrong idea, but there's a danger involved with that. Is that if you kind of say, well, these people think and they're all bad, it can become a little bit xenophobic, potentially. You have to navigate around that. Whereas I much prefer, this is kind of like some sort of swarm. There are maybe, like you would have like in an Alien, you'd have your drone and you'd have, or like Wasp, you'd have your drone and then your queen or whatever. Like, the queens are intelligent, but they have a different culture and that's motivating them. Whereas the drones are basically insects, and therefore you can kind of get away a little bit more with that kind of... I kind of want these... I love these visuals where you kind of... If it's like if it was like a film, you would be... You know, that bit where they're standing at the wall. If you've seen World War Z, that bit where there's all the zombies coming and they kind of pile up on top of each other, and there's just overwhelming odds. I kind of like the idea of that. So, yeah. So, third faction. So the first draft. So what he needs them to do. So aliens will use warp drive. I'm putting warp drive. I'm gonna to open portals to other realms. Need to be stopped. I cannot use words. Okay, so humans are being invaded by Zerg-like species. Yeah, Zerg. Yeah. And hid a portion of their population on a secret planet in another dimension and then hid it. Yeah, something along those lines. It's kind of where I'm thinking is more of a balance between those sort of two. is that like there were the pilgrims and they went off to their own planet and they had formed their own colony. So they're still in our dimension, but basically they were a colony supported by the rest of the humans. But basically their supply ships never turned up because basically the aliens had initially attacked and basically it wiped out the whole of Starfleet, if you like, because fighting them. So there was nothing left. So if you've seen like the latest series of Enterprise in the future where all the warp drives don't work, I'm not deliberately pulling on that, but that kind of same situation where they can't travel, they can't have faster than light travel. So the colony has basically been abandoned and over the years have forgotten their heritage and basically reverted back to something more primitive. But there's this ship, maybe the last ship crashed into their world and crashed deep into it. Yeah. Cool. We can dig it. Cool. So, one final thing. We're going to wrap up here soon, probably in the next, 10 minutes. And then the idea... Do you know, I've never got to the end of a Mass Effect. I should... I need to... Maybe the portals only work with an active warp drive on both sides. So after the first wave is over, the third faction shut down. I'm going along the similar lines to that, Raz. So Raz basically said, so just for video, maybe the portals only work with an active warp drive on both sides. So after the first wave of Zerg, the third faction shut down all warp drives. I think that basically maybe to close those portals, what they needed to do was literally kind of crash their starships into the portals and explode them and something like that. How I'm not too worried about. I mean, obviously I am worried about it, but in terms of getting the story going off, that will be something that will kind of emerge over time. What I'm thinking is that the aliens will use the drive to open portals to other realms. I'm going somewhere with your thing. So they need to be stopped. So what happens with the first draft is, where are they? Here. So I'm going to type these all up as Nita notes. So join up with third faction, right? So they get recruited with third faction. They go into one portal. Maybe destroy the drive. Get trapped. So basically, they've closed one of the portals. But they're now trapped on the other side of it. And they need to get back. And they need to find the... the Zerg, for want of a better phrase. To stop them. But... So let's say that they go into the portal and big bad, not all the big bad, some of the big bad follows. Maybe if it's like insects, they've already infested it. So basically they're trapped in a third world. I'm creating a massive scope here to give myself lots of room to play. Okay. This is, if you like, the big finale of, if you like, episode 1 of if this was a TV series. You know, the third faction, they're all there. They go through the portal. Things are getting crazy. They're battling their way through, and they manage to destroy the warp drive. Now, when they do that, the portal closes behind them, and they're trapped in the third world with some of the Zerg there, with maybe they absorb some of that magic so that they can kind of do it. So we can play that's part of the world building. So maybe the weird Western fantasy is where they end up. I need to think about which sort of world I want to write in. So they're in another realm now. They have to try and it's becoming a portal fantasy with sci-fi elements now. Yeah, they then have to get back. They have to save their own world. They have to get hold of the portal device that the aliens have got, because they couldn't just go into another one and steal it, because as soon as they take it, the portal closes. And then if they steal the other one, that portal closes. There's some logistics there I need to think of on the world building. There's something along those lines where the second portal won't work. The second warp drive won't work. If you need one either side, then it's only one faction that opens it. I mean, the Zerg could have been there trying to open it. I will think on that. So what I'm going to do is tomorrow is I'm going to type all this up a little bit neater. I'm going to do it so that there is this initial document is as is, and I will do a separate document that will basically tidy this up a little bit. And tomorrow we're going to come back and we're going to look at world building, and basically kind of decide what worlds we are. Now, what we'll find that as we do those worlds, this is going to change a little bit. I have had some, I've done some things where I've created a really great world and then basically changed the entire plot because of it. Mainly because like the dynamics don't work. One element of the dynamics doesn't work and everything filters down. So what I'm going to do is I am going to end that there today. We got loads done. Thank you all for your help on this. This has been brilliant. I'm going to think on this overnight. If any of you think of anything overnight, my socials should be listed. Oh, no, I don't think I've got my socials listed. They're on my Twitch page. So, I will type this up. It will be on the website, maybe tomorrow morning, I think. And I will have there will be two elements. One which is the tidied up version, and one with all these notes on. And there will also be a replay of this video there as well. So I will, with that in space, we've been here for 90 minutes, so that's a really good session. No, it doesn't work because I haven't got the capture there. Oh, there we go. Making a bit of change as we go through. So thank you very much for everybody for taking part, and we will be back tomorrow same time looking at world building, and we can go from there. We'll probably make a load of other changes. So thank you all for joining today. It's been a great session. I'm absolutely knackered now. But I've got plenty to think about. So, thank you once again. And I will see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.